initiative to create mass environmental awareness and to foster sustainability worldwide, says these products can be melted and molded into many different plastic items. I'm Chris Woodward.
American Family News is online at onenewsnow.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download the One News Now mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Family is an institution set forth by God, one man and one woman for life, with the outflow being children produced by that union. It's obvious to all that there is an attack on the family in our country, and especially on fathers. Whether it's the cycle of sin that persists in our families or the pressure from our government to exclude men from being intimately involved, the strategic battle is on for the souls of men. Join us in the battle to strengthen fatherhood. UrbanFamilyTalk.com.
She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
You know, what people are witnessing is that the agenda that President Trump ran on and that we've been delivering on over the last 2 years is working for every American. This is a great day for America, and it's all a result of the leadership that President Trump's been advancing on the economy.
All the bad people in this story are lawyers. There's a hero. His name is Admiral Mike Rogers. He was the head of the National Security Agency. He discovered the illegal spying. He went personally to the FISA court and briefed the chief judge.
If we ask this question, what does it matter to the person at home? If the highest levels of government can trample the constitutional rights and the Constitution that through which we elect a president, imagine what it can do to you.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Hey there. Welcome to the program. Yeah, it's Friday. It's Friday. Yes. So as a mom of 3 teens who has had basically an event every single night this week, something has happened every single night this week, which has meant that I'm going to be just completely bogged down for the whole week. Some of it's been wonderful. Some of it's been so meaningful and touching. Some of it's been so awesome, but it's been every night this week. And so I am looking forward to this weekend like nobody's business. I'm not kidding you. You're hearing a little bit of excitement, a little bit of rock and roll, because I'm ready for the weekend. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. We are actually going to be having, again, another jam-packed show. It's Friday, but we're not going to slow down at all. We're going to push right into the weekend where we're going to get a chance to decompress, to unplug. But before then, there's a lot of there's good news, there's interesting news, there's, we're going to do some analysis on the bar thing that happened this week. By the way, I think he came out really strong this week, don't you? Yeah. So all of that is going to be going on, every bit of that. Today, we're going to have 2 guests this hour. We're going to be speaking to Kimberly Klacik. She's a Republican strategist and political commentator. She's been on the show many times before. We love Kimberly. And then Liz Harrington, RNC spokesperson. She's going to call in and talk to us about the bar testimony. And the reason I'm so excited to speak to Liz about that is just because, honestly, we saw something interesting this week. A seasoned veteran of the political arena, not really fazed by the tricks and chicanery that was, they tried it. They came for him and they came up empty. They brought buckets of chicken, bad attitudes, lies and smears, and came up wanting. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. That was great. So we'll be talking about that. And also, what we're going to get into right now is this. It's just so interesting to me when you remember back in, this has been a continuing refrain from Democrats and people on the political left that Republicans like to say things like, we're going to take our country back. Tea Party people said, we're going to take our country back. And what they meant was politically take it back from the opposing side. But it was many, many times that people would say, actually, what they mean is they're going to take it back from the black people because Barack Obama's black and apparently he owns the whole country. And so that's what they mean. They're going to take it back from him. And it has racial overtones, racial connotations. So the award-winning Washington Free Beacon has come up with this fantastic mashup of people saying we're going to take our country back. Some of the voices you'll recognize because it goes way back. And when you're listening, just tune your ears up just a tad. You're going to hear some people, some of our favorites. Okay, I'll just tell you one. Sarah Palin, when she's like on the stump, they're running for the presidency. She's running for VP. She says, we're going to take our country back. And it was pretty exciting when she said that. It wasn't racial. It was just exciting. And so as a permanently tan person, when I heard her say that, I didn't hear anything racial, y'all. I didn't hear it. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen to this clip. And then I have good news for Fri-YAY, Fri-YAY. On sanctuary cities in the state of Florida. This is fantastic news. Y'all will be up Snoopy dancing when you hear it. But first, let's listen to taking our country back isn't exactly problematic anymore. It's number 4.
Let's get up and take it back and make this country what it can be.
I want to take my country back. And the question arose, take it back from what?
A sense of mission that is just extraordinary to take our country back.
When you hear the good old days or want to take our country back, it sends a shiver down my spine.
And let's take back our country.
We've got to take our country back.
We're taking this back. We're going to take our country back.
You know, the idea of take America back, make America great again really appeals to a certain kind of voter.
Are we actually going to take our government back?
I actually do think there are enough angry folks. There are still people talking about taking their country back.
Unions come together and take our country back.
I come from one of these states that wanted to, quote, take our country back from those people. Dream big, fight hard, and take back our country.
When you hear take our country back, well, what do you mean take our country back?
We can take our country back with a democratic agenda for the people.
Some say, let's take our country back. Back from who?
Look, you've got Democrats who are saying this is our opportunity to take our country back.
If it's take America back again, we know that there's a whole swaths of populations that don't feel that America was good for them.
That you go to vote so we can take our country back.
People talk about taking their country back. There's a certain racial component to this for some people.
Is there? I honestly, so if it's racial when Republicans say it, is it racial when Elizabeth Warren says it? You just heard some of the biggest commentators on the left saying it's racial. And then right after that, you heard Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and others on the left saying we're going to take our country back. So I think it's pretty easy for us to surmise that when people say they want to take their country back, they don't mean take it back from any racial group of people. They're saying some people who don't have the country's best interests at heart, and Democrats believe that about Republicans, are currently in power and we want to take the country back. And they do. They actually want to take it back before the election. The Democrats actually want to take the country back right this minute from the Republicans by impeaching the president. And apparently there was this big, long, 83-minute meeting between the Democrats earlier this week. And, you know, a bunch of them, really the nincompoops, they're just so enthused about trying to press for impeachment based on the fact that the president did not obstruct, nor did he collude with Russia. Because remember, in order for him to have obstructed something, he had to have first have committed a crime. So if he did not collude with Russia, then what would he have been obstructing? The investigation itself? He couldn't have obstructed that since it went through to its conclusion. But I don't know why I'm sitting up here, you know, with these facts and all this information, because facts don't matter. It's our feelings. Do you feel like you want the president impeached? Well, then he should be impeached because it's all about how you feel. Yeah, that's who we're dealing with right now. So, you know, interesting, whatever. There's the good news that I was telling you about. And this to me, I get so excited when I see, first of all, you got this new governor down in Florida. His name is Ron DeSantis. And he's just been so strong. He's seems like instead of going in and being, you know, kind of wishy-washy or kind of stepping away and not doing what he promised, or maybe just kind of getting caught up in the fun of being the governor, because let's face it, it's a lot of responsibility. It's a huge job. It's a ton of work for any governor, for any state, whether it's a small state or a large one. You still have people's lives in your hands, their livelihoods, their kids' schools, everything. You have it in your hands. But there's also some fun to it. You get to live in a governor's mansion. You get to have a lot of staff. You get to take on a lot of additional, it's like the publicity aspect of it. People know who you are. They want to talk to you. There's a lot of respect and reverence that comes with the position. And for some people, they get in that and they just lose their heads. Now, obviously, we don't know what Ron DeSantis is going to do in the future. We can just go on what he's doing now. This is exactly what has been promised, to get rid of these sanctuary cities. He's on the Republican side. This is a huge issue for the Republican Party at the national level, also at the local level. These sanctuary cities are actually thwarting the work of Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security. These criminal illegal aliens, not all illegal aliens are criminals, but the ones that are criminals are repeat offenders. They're repeat deportation offenders. These people are actually killing Americans. And when you eliminate sanctuary cities, you eliminate the ability for criminal illegal aliens to thwart our legal system and go out and kill and maim and rape and hurt other Americans. It's just that simple. So Governor DeSantis has actually said he's going to sign the ban on sanctuary cities in Florida. This is huge because sanctuary cities in Florida are a magnet for family members of illegal aliens. They bring the illegal alien family members in, and then if they commit crimes, they don't have to cooperate with police, and police, more importantly, don't cooperate with ICE, so that people who commit crimes aren't deported. People who are there illegally aren't deported, because if you're in the country illegally, you've committed a crime. We need to always be very clear about that. So the ban on sanctuary cities passed in both the Florida House and the Senate, and it's now headed to the governor's office to be signed. Fox News is reporting that the Florida legislature actually passed this high-profile bill on Thursday banning sanctuary policies that protect, Fox News says, undocumented immigrants. What is this nonsense? Illegal aliens. It protects illegal aliens. Yeah. Okay, so the bill passed the House on a 68-45 vote, with every single Democrat being opposed, shortly after it cleared the Senate in a 22-18 narrow party line vote, mostly party line vote. He supports the measure. He's expected to sign it. He actually responded on Twitter last night by saying, "I thank the Florida legislature for presenting me with a bill that upholds the rule of law and addresses sanctuary cities and cities and counties in Florida. We are a stronger state when we are protecting our residents, fostering safe communities, and respecting the work of law enforcement." You got to love that. On a Friday, you know what I'm saying? That's some good news for us to be just, we can Snoopy dance on it. We can get our happy on. It's 2 good news Fridays in a row. Last Friday, we were rejoicing over the fantastic results of the spring share-a-thon. This Friday, we get to be Snoopy dancing and killing it over here over this news from Florida. Hopefully other governors will take a little bit of that moxie that he's spreading out so wide and far, and they'll take it upon themselves to do similar actions. If you live in a state where there are sanctuary cities, we have to pray, obviously, for wise leadership and that people would step away from the sinful kind of repudiation of the rule of law through the support of sanctuary cities, and that governors and those who are in a position of authority, namely the state legislatures, would move to prevent sanctuary cities from becoming the policy in their state. That's what it's going to take. We can't rely on the federal government for everything. We can't expect President Trump and the Trump administration to do everything. Some of this work needs to be done at the state level. And the other thing that state legislatures can do is make sure that no state dollars that go to welfare and aid, any kind of welfare that comes from the state government, that none of that money can be received by people who are in the country illegally. That should be a no-brainer. If you're here illegally, you can't live in public assisted housing. You can't receive welfare benefits. You can't do any of that stuff. Until we get to that place, we're going to continue to see, sanctuary cities and upticks in illegal immigration. Now, that was fantastic, good news. And we also talked yesterday, just a minute, about the Baltimore mayor resigning after the feds raided her home. We mentioned the whole Facebook ban thing, and I'm still just circling back around to that from yesterday because we had a good interview on the subject, but I just want to point out. So the idea that we would turn Facebook and those platforms like Twitter into utilities and regulate them like that is just ridiculous. I've seen some other conversation about people saying, if we can force, we sound like what we say about the gay marriage proponents, or the redefinition of marriage people who they want to force businesses to serve same-sex couples for weddings. And we have been very strong on the political right as conservatives, as Christians, in saying you can't force people to bake you a cake, to decorate your wedding, et cetera, if it goes against their closely held, faith traditions. Well, they're saying that this is forcing a private entity like Facebook to serve someone that they find repugnant, because Facebook does find conservatives repugnant. That's an interesting take on it that I hadn't considered. And it goes back to the fact that Facebook has done all of these wrong things, and yet we all, including myself, continue to use their service. I guess we're probably going to come to a place where we have to make the decision to no longer use them instead of waiting for them to throw us off. Interesting, right? Okay, we'll be back with Kimberly Klacik right after this.
It's amazing but true. When it comes to one of America's biggest household expenditures, healthcare, a lot of people think they've got no choice. People are used to thinking we have to do it this way, but they don't. Yes, you have the freedom to choose an alternative with your healthcare. It's MediShare, and it costs way less than the alternatives. The typical family saves $500 a month, not a year, a month. And if you're single, this can save you a lot too. And let's face it, a big reason MediShare is 400,000 people strong, it just works. They've shared over $3 billion in medical bills, so they can help share your needs too. Joining MediShare for so many people is one of those things that makes you say, why didn't I do this before? So yes, the time has come for something better. Look into joining MediShare and see why so many people are opting out of the old way and into the new. Why not look into this? Just call 855-PSALM-23. That's 855-PSALM-23. 855-PSALM-23.
Hi, I'm Crawford Loritz with a legacy moment. My Uncle Henry was a confirmed bachelor. He loved his freedom. He felt being married would tie him down and clip his wings. Then it happened. You guessed it. He was almost 50 when he fell head over heels in love with Elsie. They got married, and in fact, I performed the wedding. After they were married, he said to me with a little sheepish grin on his face, "She's the one I've been waiting for my whole life." Isn't that something? He's the last person in the world I ever thought would get married. And come to find out, all the time he was waiting for the right person. Yes, indeed, there's a lot of truth to that saying, good things come to those who wait. That also reminds me that impatience causes us to make half-baked emotional decisions that are sometimes disastrous. Waiting is a wonderful friend to a purposeful, effective life. In fact, Psalm 37, verse 34 says exactly that. Wait for the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. I like to point out that, first of all, it's not a suggestion, it's a command. Wait for the Lord. While we wait, we must concentrate on obedience. Hang in there. Wait for the Lord and keep his way. The second observation is that there is a promise awaiting. He says, wait for the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. There's a special favor that comes when you move in lockstep with God. But when you get out of line, you also take yourself out of line of his blessing and favor. Here's what I want you to remember today. Waiting on God is not wasted time. Ask Uncle Henry. God is preparing us and preparing something for us. So take a seat and relax.
More information about the ministry of Crawford Loritz can be found online at livingalegacy.org.
This is Stacy on the Right with Stacy Washington on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. We have so much awesomeness for you today on the program, and I want to make sure and share with you our encouragement for today. It is Matthew 18:19. If two of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. And I'm sharing that one because it occurred to me that when we're talking about praying over our meals, we're probably eating together, and that's two or more of us gathered together and praying over some of these issues that we're facing. All of these issues, really, we take them to the Lord in prayer, and we do that over our meals, and that is supercharging our prayer lives and relying on God in a way that we can only expect him to answer our prayers and to bless us for that obedience. So it's Matthew 18:19. If two of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. So take that with you on a Friday, Fri-YAY. All right, it's my pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. It's Kimberly Klacik. She's a Republican strategist, political commentator, frequent guest on Fox News and Fox Business. Kimberly, thanks for joining in today.
Hi, thanks for having me. How are you?
You know, I'm pretty good because it's Friday, and I looked at my calendar. I'm double checking just to see if anybody added anything. Don't you dare add anything. I don't have anything tonight. I don't have anything on the calendar tonight. I'm so relieved. I usually look forward to like, ooh, I get to, not today. I'm ready for nothing.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
So, okay. I actually, let me just look here real quick because I thought I was talking to Demetrius. Oh, okay. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because you're from the Baltimore area, correct? You live in Baltimore. Is your mayor? Yeah. So your mayor just, what's going on with that chick? Like what is going on in Baltimore?
I know. Corruption. You know, what's so sad about it, and I think this is kind of the culture in Baltimore City, but she actually got caught. And, you know, once you get caught, you know, people will pile on because I think they know that it's been going on for so long, and they're just like, oh, wait, here's someone that's been corrupt. Here she is, out center in front, and you know, don't look this way. Just keep looking at her. So people have been piling on, and everyone's calling for a resignation. She finally resigned yesterday, which is, you know, something that she probably should have done weeks ago, but I'm so glad that she finally did. You know, trying to, you know, basically playing the game pay to play. You know, we see that all the time. But when you get caught, you get caught. And I thought, honestly, it was kind of cowardly of Mayor Pugh to not resign personally. She had her lawyer do it, you know, at a press conference. So we haven't seen her since she went on her indefinite leave from a bout with pneumonia that she said she had about a month ago. Apparently she says she's still sick. But I thought that was really cowardly of her to not at least resign in person and just send a note with her lawyer. But you know what? It's done. It's a done deal. And hopefully we can move forward.
Okay, so yeah, I have to echo your comments. I think the people of Baltimore deserve someone who's more concerned with righting some of the things that are happening there in the city. Like the city of Baltimore used to be just a fantastic place to live, and now they're suffering from some of the same kinds of ills that we see here in the city of St. Louis, where my husband and we live in the suburbs, but the city of St. Louis it's integral to how we live here in a metropolitan area. And I think it's the same for Baltimore. You have a lot of beautiful suburbs there, but the city is in need of good leadership.
Absolutely. And you know what? Our interim mayor that is now, you know, being sworn in as mayor, he's Jack Young, the president of City Council. He's actually done a great job thus far. You know, he's hit the ground running. So he's in Detroit, I think, this week, just trying to see what he can do and get for us in the city of Baltimore. I think they're trying to figure out different ways to do federal funding and grants to help in the city. So I'm hoping that he comes back with something and some good news, because he's been, you know, at the crime scenes, you know, giving people updates. This is things that Mayor Pugh acted as if she was too good to do. So he's done a great job thus far. He let 7 people go out of her administration that were involved in some of this corruption. So, you know, he's done a lot since he's been there. And so I look forward to seeing what he's doing in the near future.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's the local angle, because you just happen to live where this, you know, this news story is kind of breaking onto the national scene. But I was dying. I'm totally waiting to hear what you have to say about how Barr, he rode through Capitol Hill this week and he was having none of it. I mean, he just was his own man the whole time. What do you think the Democrats are going to do now that he's shown them that he really isn't afraid of them?
You know what? I don't know what they're going to do. I know they had a fit because he didn't come before them again for these questions that, honestly, you know, he can try to answer some of these questions, but I think the person they really want to talk to is Mueller. And I don't know if they're afraid to have him come or even ask him to come before Congress. But, you know, the person they want to speak to is Mueller. Mm-hmm. And, you know, before Mueller was this great white knight, he's going to help us impeach Trump. He's this great guy. And now that he's, you know, put the report through and had Barr read it and say, look, there's no evidence of collusion, you know, move on. So now they're kind of like, wait, what happened? What happened to our impeachment? What are we going to do now? So, now they're grasping at straws. But I'm glad that he held his own, and it seems the president's very proud of him for doing so. So if they want to try to call Mueller, I think they should. But I think they should give it up and really focus on 2020, the election.
Okay, so speaking of 2020, because you got that. You totally summed that up for what they should do. I agree with you. I wish they would listen to you, Kimberly. So let's talk about Bill de Blasio. Apparently he's going to join in. He must be number 21 or 22 who's running for president on the D side. What are his chances?
Well, I think sometimes, I don't want to say for sure, but I think sometimes people enter these races hoping to just be extremely relevant, right? De Blasio, what has he really done for New York City? You hear people that actually live there. I mean, I'm in the Baltimore area, but they say, there's more trash on the ground. The crime seems to be rising again. So I don't think that he really has a shot. I know he'll try to do it and raise his profile, but I don't think he can be serious about it. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Well, so he's already famous. He's already rich. Sometimes people run for president because they want to raise their profile. Sometimes they run because it is a very lucrative enterprise. And if you mount a credible campaign, it can bring opportunities that can really propel you into becoming a rich person. But he already has those things. He's already rich. He's already famous. So it seems like he might be running to push a certain agenda. But as you mentioned, he hasn't done a good job for New Yorkers. New Yorkers are not singing his praises right now. So I almost feel like he's so much bigger than the average American citizen. Like, he's so much bigger than all the stuff I have to do. These are not things that are on his plate that he's concerned with. So in his mind, like, if I was thinking, I'm redoing these bookshelves over the weekend, for him, the equivalent of redoing his bookshelves over the weekend is mounting a presidential campaign, and kind of going on TV a lot. You see what I'm saying? Like, he's so outsized, but it doesn't mesh up with what we're looking for, because as Americans, whether we're regular people or whether, we're wealthy, all Americans are looking for some solutions to the problems that are facing us as a country, the opioid epidemic, the southern border, and some of our social policy. And he's not an expert in any of those.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
I don't get it. I don't know why he's running. And so, I keep looking at him and thinking, he doesn't even present a good face for running. There's nothing about him that makes me say, oh, I'd like to listen to what he has to say or give him a look.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. He's not an expert or anything. I'm just trying to think right now. Has he said anything about immigration or anything? I don't know if he has.
I don't think he has either.
I'm really trying to think of what...
Yeah, we're coming up blank. We read the news all day, every day, right? You read the news all day, every day. So do I. And we haven't heard jack Ola from him. We don't know what he's about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So, if we don't know, Kimberly, Americans who do their news in regular amounts, people who are not like us, obsessed with it, they don't know either, which I guess is probably a benefit to us. We should be glad he's not doing a good job.
Yeah. Yep, that's true.
All right. So the other good news from today that I'm just crowing about is even on Drudge, because Drudge has been a little tough on the president these past few months. Like, I get the feeling he's not happy with President Trump, Matt Drudge, but he's got his headline over at Drudge: envy of the world, unemployment 49-year low, wages hitting $27.77 an hour, stock market endless rally, Trump approval 50%. Could the president be doing any better? I'm just wondering if I'm going to get tired of winning. I'm not tired yet.
Not at all. Yeah, we haven't seen these numbers since the 1960s. So I don't understand why people are so tough on him. I guess they're hoping probably that people read these articles and they believe what they're reading, right? That he's not doing a great job. But he really is. If people really dive in, they could say, okay, this is actually fake news once again. But he's doing an amazing job. And to me, I think it only gets better from here. He's got so many things on the books. I don't think we've seen half of what he's going to be doing with this First Step Act. And the Urban Revitalization Coalition, they have a lot of things that they've been working on that I think is coming up next month. So, we're just going to start seeing so many more good things coming out of this administration. And I'm excited. People can keep talking trash about him, but he's doing such a great job.
You even brought in, you looped in a couple of subjects that At first, I was a little reticent. I was like, what's going to happen with the First Step Back? I see Van Jones. I see leftists gathering around. How could it be good? But so far, it's I've been very cautious. I'm like, well, is it going to benefit while still giving, true rehabilitation to our hardened criminal element? And what I'm seeing so far is people who've been incarcerated for lengthy amounts of time, longer than rapists, longer than people who, torture kids and animals. These people are now being released and given a second opportunity at life in America, which we believe in that. And it's really helping people, which I'm excited to see that. I'm relieved and happy for this success for the president in this initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. And even a further piece, which is, I live in Baltimore. I run a nonprofit helping women that come out of incarceration. The further piece that was so needed and then you put in there was giving them the job training and the skills necessary to get not just a job, but go on to get a career. And so sometimes, you see these programs where people are released into society, but they end up being arrested within 5 years, I think, is a study, 78%, because they don't have that training and the skills to get a job. If you've been locked up for 20 years, how much do you know about technology, right? So he's putting that piece onto it. Secretary Dr. Carson, he's now doing something with HUD, making sure that Americans have a better opportunity for affordable housing over illegal immigrants. That's huge. I don't know the exact percentage and numbers on that, but apparently that has been a problem. He's, diving into that. So this administration is doing a great job. And no matter what anyone says, I hope people actually read the real news and not the fake news.
Yeah, I agree. So the point that you make, especially since you're working with women who are coming out of prison, these are women who they want to make a transition back into regular life and become successful. They don't want to be, a part of that recidivism number that you quoted. And I think it's such important, vital work. And I'm so glad that you're doing it because I think sometimes, it's good when anyone attempts to do it, but sometimes it needs to be within the community, if you know what I mean, to kind of have more of a connection there. And there are a lot of different organizations out there doing that work, but it's wonderful to hear about you doing it women to women because women in America are also incarcerated, and that's important. So last subject I wanted to run through today, Kimberly, Facebook has banned Farrakhan. Washington Post said, Washington Times said Washington Post said he's a right winger. Farrakhan, the man who hates Republicans, but anyway. And we're talking Alex Jones and some others who, they've had their moment in the sun and said some crazy stuff, yada, yada, yada. But Ilhan Omar and Tlaib and others who have really said anti-Semitic things, and Zuckerberg is Jewish, they've still got Facebook accounts. So what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, this just feeds in the fact that everybody, not everybody, but a majority, it has to do with the social platforms, Hollywood, whatever people are entertained by, basically, they're going to push this liberal narrative. And unfortunately, Alex Jones, he is an extremist, he's over there. But I read somewhere that Laura Loomer, who lost her Instagram account for things that she said, I don't know. I think it's just another way to control the minds and the masses, So it's, again, those people that might question what the liberal narrative is, what's better way than to make sure that they can't do it publicly. So it's sad, and I can't believe they posted that Farrakhan was a right-winger, but I'm hoping they fix that immediately and hopefully apologize.
I know. Thank you.
Right-wingers.
We need an apology because that guy is not one of us. I'll take Paul Joseph Watson any day, right? He used to be at InfoWars. He might still be there. I don't know. I mean, I've been on InfoWars programming before, on David Knight's program. I think Alex Jones probably would have had me on if it weren't for my comments about Michelle Obama, where I said, I don't hate her. And I don't think people should insult her appearance. I think you should talk about her policies. And because I said those positive things about her, he wouldn't have me on. And I was fine with it. I'm like, I could take it or leave it. Wow. But it's interesting because I've been on InfoWars and because so many people I know have been on there, mostly, Second Amendment supporters, women, blacks, Hispanic. So he's not a racist. It's the Sandy Hook stuff that I think is really problematic for him. But Kimberly, the thing for me is I don't have to agree with his speech. I do not like the things that Farrakhan says, but when you talk about banning folks, they're just one step away from hitting somebody like me, because I'm a Christian conservative and I believe in, traditional marriage. And I think the transgender movement is a crock. And those views alone are enough to put me in the same basket with them. I think we're at a place where we might have to decide that we're going to leave as opposed to waiting for them to boot us off.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is sad, and you're right. As what people might feel about Alex Jones, he is not a racist.
Yeah.
Louis Farrakhan has said that he doesn't want women in his presence in some places. He said that gays are going to hell. You know what I mean? These are things that he has said. Yeah. And to put him in that same category, as InfoWars or even Velo, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But, that's how they're going to try to say, okay, well, if we get rid of these guys,
Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us today. Stacy Washington, we'll be right back.
This is Uncommon Moments. Here's former Super Bowl winning NFL coach Tony Dungy and his wife Lauren sharing from their book Uncommon Marriage.
Tony is analytical like his dad. He'll say, we can do this, and here's how we should go about it. As a result, his plans usually turn out well. We are opposites in a number of ways, but we've learned to respect and navigate our differences.
One thing you can do to discover the unique differences between you and your spouse is to talk with their family. As Lauren interacted with my family over the years, she learned more about me. I did the same with her family. This helped me see how Lauren was wired. I realized how special and wonderful she was.
And I was able to learn things about Tony that really helped in our uncommon marriage.
Tony and Lauren Dungy, authors of Uncommon Marriage, learning about lasting love and overcoming life's obstacles together. Discover more at CoachDungy.com.
Bishop Vincent Matthews.
Every one of my children have gone to college, that are in college on an academic scholarship. We taught them in our home. So reevaluate wherever you bought your hair or got it done. One day it's going to be out of style, but your heritage is not just for what am I going to do today. It's for your children's 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 children.
The Marriage, Family, and Life Conference is coming June 20th through the 22nd. Learn more and register at urbanfamilytalk.com.
There's a particular reason why there is a Back to God radio show. It was about 4 years ago, God called me out of the pulpit and said, Dexter, I need you to go tell my people it's time for them to get back to God, back to my morals, back to my values. This is the thing that you're supposed to do simply because you belong to the Most High God. It's the least that you can do for a God that loves you the way that he does.
Time to get back to God. Weekday afternoons at 4 Central on Urban Family Talk.
It's Fox Wheels.
Marking tires to enforce parking rules is like entering property without a search warrant. That from a federal appeals court last week, which declared the practice unconstitutional after a woman who received more than a dozen $15 tickets in Saginaw, Michigan, sued. The judges ruled that the purpose of marking tires was to raise revenue, not to protect the public against a safety risk. The decision sets a new standard for Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee, the states covered by the 6th District. German automaker Daimler says it has no idea how North Korean leader Kim Jong-un got Mercedes stretch limousines that he was seen traveling in, including a Mercedes Maybach S600 Pullman Guard and a Maybach S62 in his recent visit with Russian President Vladimir Putin and earlier summits with President Trump. Such luxury items are banned under UN sanctions of the country. That's Fox Wheels. I'm Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
You can watch a live stream of the show on Facebook or YouTube at Stacy on the Right. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Hey there, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. You can find out more at stacyontheright.com. Hit the subscribe button over there. You will not regret it. I don't sell your emails. I don't I don't do anything with them but email you occasionally about cool stuff that's going on. And you can also find out more at onenewsnow.com, our news and information site for American Family Association. We'd love you to hit the subscribe button over there as well. All right. Right now, it's my pleasure to welcome Liz Harrington. She's the RNC National Spokesperson. Hey, Liz, thanks for joining in today.
Hey, how are you?
I'm pretty good. It's Friday. I'm ready for the weekend.
Me too.
Yeah, after this week, news-wise, family-wise, I'm like, I need to slow down just a tad.
Yeah. It can be draining. At least you're not in D.C. in the swamp.
Oh, geez, I know. You guys got to get out into the burbs or something where there's some grass and get away from those people.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got, I'm dying to hear your take on the Barr testimony. He was strong this week. He was unfazed, unflappable. He was Cheney-esque. I've seen people comparing him to Dick Cheney, which is quite a compliment if you think about someone who has an iron will and is never, ever ruffled by the Democrats.
Yeah, absolutely. He is restoring some integrity to the Justice Department. He's actually a professional and doing things by the book and doing everything legal and everything from the entire release of this thing. This whole controversy is such a fake controversy. I mean, we're talking about like some scandal of what he did when he released the entire report to the public. I mean, what are we talking about here? And so, of course, you watch this really disgraceful showing of the Democrats. I mean, including the 2020 contenders, just smearing this man because he followed the exact justice. Actually, he changed Justice Department guidelines to release the whole thing, and also consulted with the special counsel with the redactions, gave the special counsel the opportunity to look at his 4-page letter. He declined. And so what did they do? They did what the swamp does. So they type up a letter that they can leak to their friends in the media and the Washington Post later to weaponize against him. And but it holds no water because when you read the actual Mueller letter, it says he didn't object to how the Attorney General was characterizing his findings. He was objecting to the narrative. And isn't that what this whole thing has always been about? They've been spinning this media narrative with the friends in the media, with the Democrats for 2 years. And now they're losing that narrative because there's no collusion and there's no Russia story. So they're freaking out. And that's why you see the leaks in the Washington Post. You see the leaks in the New York Times. They're finally covering the spy scandal, which was always the real story here. And I think they're scared. So that's why they're smearing this Attorney General. But they're they're embarrassing themselves in the process.
So, Liz, I'm wondering because I've seen some rumblings on Twitter and other, just some websites about the investigations that are ongoing into kind of the beginning. So the dossier, which should never have been a lawful basis for a FISA warrant or a FISA application, right, but it was. And so you've got the Republicans looking into that. And it's like a Pandora's box. If everything I've read about the dossier, its sourcing, its connection to the Clinton campaign, and then if you read the text messages between the lovebirds and the FBI, and then the connection between the lady who worked at Fusion GPS, I think her name's Nellie Orr, and her husband who worked for the FBI, if I'm getting all their stuff in a row, if all of that stuff's true and not like, tinfoil stuff, him opening the door could destroy. I mean, we're talking, this goes all the way up to the top. Obama was the president at that point, and he knew this was going on as well. This is the reason why we have Mazie Hirono literally calling the worst kinds of smears and names from that panel to Barr. She defamed him. It was so unbelievably unsenatorial, uncongressional. It was just unbelievable.
Right.
That's where this is coming from.
Yeah, it was shameless, and she can't even, I guess, come up with her smears herself. She's reading them off of paper, but it's unbelievable. Absolutely right. We have to get to the bottom of this. And you have Hillary Clinton on Rachel Maddow's show the other night calling for a 9/11 commission on the Russia story. Never mind how offensive it is to compare her election defeat to the most horrific terrorist attack on American soil in history. Never mind that, but okay, let's have another report on this, because it all goes back to her. It all goes back to her and her misinformation, her disinformation from Russian sources that they paid for, spreading rumors and innuendo and gossip that was false about our president while he was running, and then after she lost, using it to infiltrate his transition team. I mean, that story in the New York Times is just stunning, that they had an FBI informant, not just before during the campaign, which is bad enough, but while the president was in the White House in 2017. Stefan Halper was in the White House for meetings. And was he reporting back to the FBI? I mean, this thing stinks. It goes all the way to the top, because Strzok and Page texted each other that Obama wanted to know everything they were doing. We know that there was an Oval Office meeting on January 5th, 2017 between Obama, Biden, Jim Comey, Sally Yates, Susan Rice. And Susan Rice then emailed herself that we are doing this by the book, quote unquote, on Inauguration Day. I mean, this is so stunning. This was all a setup. I mean, you see it so clearly in this New York Times story, and it's what they've been doing for 2 years. I mean, they accuse the Russians, right, of information warfare against our internal politics. No, they may have tried, but our own CIA, our own intelligence community did information warfare against our own people, their own political enemies, their own government. John Brennan, Jim Clapper, this whole thing is such a disaster. It is so scandalous, and there needs to be accountability. People need it to be, I mean, we have to get the Inspector General report out, and there's got to be criminal referrals here, because they've been illegally leaking and lying to the American people, upending lives. I mean, George Papadopoulos, his life ruined. Carter Page, where do they go to get their names back? It's so shameful, and we have to get all the truth out there, and I believe it's coming very soon.
So you so perfectly summed up all of it, and it's such a tangled web of individuals who are they're all in the same silo in my mind, Liz, because they're all in the Obama administration. They're all working on the same side to try to protect Hillary Clinton, to ultimately protect Barack Obama, who up until this, like, even to this day, you and I are talking, we've said his name a couple of times, but for the most part, in the media, with these revelations,
they leave him out.
They leave him out. It's as if he's untouchable. And in the America that I served in the military to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my husband, so many other combat veterans, I never saw combat, but others who you and I both know, these are people whose names we know, and so many millions of others whose names we'll never know, who gave their lives for this country or served or left parts of themselves over in the Middle East and other theaters of war. None of us stood up for this country to have unequal government, to have unequal system of laws where some people are untouchable because they wear $12,000 house dresses like Hillary, and others of us are prosecuted to within an inch of our life like Papadopoulos. And so I'm just so, I need, all of us need as Americans to see this Inspector General report that you mentioned, and the conclusion of the investigation that brings people to justice, because we don't have that system of laws. We have blind justice here in America. And as long as we're alive and breathing, we should be working and fighting to make sure that we keep that. Even if it's imperfect, but we want to keep it as close to what we were promised by the founders as we can.
That's exactly right. And that equality under the law, that's what it always was about with the founding. That's what equality means. And you cannot have a Justice Department that is so distorted, and they put all the weight of authority and extreme power. I mean, imagine them grilling Carter Page, Papadopoulos, others, Flynn, they entrapped Flynn as well. They had every resource available to them, and they still couldn't find any collusion. I mean, it's unbelievable. But these people ruin lives. They totally covered up for Hillary. I mean, you just can't have a Justice Department that investigates one candidate, completely gives her a pass, uses the language of the campaign and Loretta Lynch calling it a matter and not an investigation, exonerated her before they interviewed her, gave everyone and their mother immunity, let Hillary Clinton have her attorney or her closest aide, Cheryl Mills, sit in on the FBI interview as she was a witness. She got to sit in as her attorney. So, of course, there's attorney-client privilege. They bent all the rules for her to give her a pass because it would have indicted the Obama administration. Obama emailed with Hillary on that bathroom server. So, look, it was a complete pass, and then you had these anti-Trump zealots, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, who hated not just him, his voters, and half of the American people with just disdain. And they had so much power, and our useful idiots in the media have been doing their bidding for over 2 years. They're still doing it. They're still implying that Russia affected the outcome of the election when everyone knows that a single vote was changed. It's absolutely appalling, and it should make every American upset, and we cannot let this happen. And one more thing about the Obama administration, we shouldn't be surprised that they did this, because this is their MO. They did it with the IRS against the Tea Party in 2012. They did it with the State Department against Bibi Netanyahu in his reelection in 2015. And they did it with the Justice Department against the Trump campaign. It's sick. It is a complete abuse of power. It is so scandalous, and it is, I think, the biggest political scandal in our history.
I think so too, and I'm so glad that we have the ability to have you come on and join us. We're getting to be close friends, you and I, Liz. We're having our time together.
I love coming on your show.
I love it when you come on. So thank you for your time today. I know we were a little short notice, but I was like, I need some fresh bar commentary, and I got totally hooked up. You helped us out today. So have a fantastic weekend, and thanks for coming on.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right. That was Liz Harrington. She is the RNC national spokesperson, and she is just so well versed in this whole story. And I agree with her that we have had it's been an amazing thing to watch this story unfold. And I sincerely hope and pray that we're going to see justice. Nothing less will do. Nothing less than full justice. And I know, there's some people out there who are like, well, it's over now, let it go. Well, I don't know. I think that what happened to some of the people that, Carter Page, the Papadopoulos family, Roger Stone and his family, I know that nobody has perfectly clean hands, but there are people who honestly, they were just as innocent of Russian collusion and obstruction, but they were caught up and they were forced into these plea deals and all of that. Why? Why did they have to sacrifice themselves? Because they helped out with the campaign that the Democrats hate? Remember, whatever we condone, we're setting ourselves up to experience that as well. And so we don't want to be on the side of saying, well, it already happened and we just want to move on and leave people swinging. We want to see justice done here. And I know it's really annoying for people. I get the emails and stuff from people who are like, oh, I can't believe you brought up Hillary Clinton's emails again. Well, why don't you get your hands on some classified information and email it to someone who does not share the clearance and see how fast the feds come down on you like a ton of bricks, and see how quickly your lawyer, who is not nearly well qualified enough to deal with a team from the Department of Justice, is trying to negotiate a plea deal for you that involves you going to prison. That's what we're talking about here. I know someone who accidentally forwarded an email from work and was literally within like 5 minutes of the email going out, he literally was in the commander's office, standing there explaining himself. For real people, that's not an option, and it shouldn't be an option for Hillary Clinton. Otherwise, what are all of these millions of Americans supporting and defending the Constitution and abiding by classified protocol? Why are they doing that? All right, y'all. If you're leaving now, you got the weekend, baby. God bless. Have a fantastic weekend. If you're sticking around, One News Now, news and information is up next.
Urban Family Talk. Urban Family Talk.
Being there is half the battle. 1milliondads.com exists to help Christian fathers to be present and intentional in the lives of their children. Our hope is to wake up the fearsome wonder that is the mighty man of God and restore him to his role as leader, teacher, and counselor. Visit 1milliondads.com. 1milliondads.com.
Truth, wisdom, empowerment. Urban Family Talk, a ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. The House Judiciary Committee is threatening to hold Attorney General William Barr in contempt of Congress if he does not comply with a new Monday deadline for Special Counsel Robert Mueller's full, unredacted report and some underlying materials. The new offer from House Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler comes after the Justice Department missed the committee's earlier deadline for the information. Nadler narrowed his offer in a letter sent to Barr today. President Trump says he had a long phone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin on a number of issues, including Venezuela.
I had a very good talk with President Putin, probably over an hour, and we talked about many things. Venezuela was one of the topics. And he is not looking at all to get involved in Venezuela other than he'd like to see something positive happen for Venezuela. And I feel the same way. We want to get some humanitarian aid. Right now, people are starving.
Opposition leader and U.S. recognized president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido, claims he is the country's rightful leader, but disputed President Nicolas Maduro still has his own share of allies, including China and Russia. A Christian apologist believes the liberal education systems both here and abroad are at least partially responsible for the lack of knowledge of the Holocaust. Chad Groening has that story.
The New York-based Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany has released a new survey that has found that 56% of Austrians lack basic knowledge of the Nazi genocide, even though the notorious Mauthausen concentration camp was just outside the city of Linz, and some of the key perpetrators of the Holocaust were Austrian. While more than half of those surveyed did not know that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust, another 36% believed 2 million or fewer were killed. And the Claims Conference says the numbers were in line with the first two surveys done on knowledge in the United States and Canada, but were more surprising coming from Austria. Dr. Alex McFarland is a Christian apologist and co-host of American Family Radio's Exploring the Word program. During an appearance on AFR, he blamed the lack of knowledge, at least in part, on secular humanist revisionist history.
That stat about Austria is disconcerting, but I would beg, at a time when secular education champions atheism, Islam, and homosexuality, how about we tell young people the truth about God, about morality, about life, marriage, family, and yes, our history, lest we fall into centuries of dark ages and millions of souls be lost.
And McFarland says when countries like Austria and Germany abandon Christianity, there's a spiritual vacuum that will eventually be filled by something dark.
And it's only the Spirit of God that can reverse that tide. There are hints that there might be an awakening of the gospel happening in parts of Europe.
I'm Chad Groening.
The federal government says 263,000 jobs were added last month, while unemployment fell to 3.6%. Economist Aparna Mathur of the American Enterprise Institute thinks it's a pretty amazing jobs report.
I think nobody was anticipating such a huge increase in the jobs numbers to 263,000, while at the same time, having a really low unemployment rate at 3.6%. So I do think, to some extent this has beaten expectations, and given how far we are now into the recovery and we already have a really tight labor market, it does make you question how much you can continue with these kinds of increases. But I think it's a hugely positive jobs report, and not much to complain about, honestly.
Over the year, average hourly earnings have increased by 3.2%. Drivers in California may need that extra money, as the statewide average price of gasoline has soared over $5 per gallon in recent weeks, and Gas Buddy says at least 4 stations in California are now charging more than $5 a gallon. The news comes as the national average price of gas continues its customary spring climb as Memorial Day approaches. Find more news at onenewsnow.com.
There are many ways you can listen to the shows of Urban Family Talk. One of those ways is through our very own app. Whether you have an iPhone or an Android, just go to the App Store and search for Urban Family Talk. You'll have immediate access to 24-hour programming as well as the podcast for each show. You'll be able to tune in no matter where you are. Speaking of tuning in, we have our own channel on another radio app called TuneIn. Cool, right? Urban Family Talk is everywhere. Just download the app and take us wherever you go.
She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
What people are witnessing is that the agenda that President Trump ran on and that we've been delivering on over the last 2 years is working for every American. This is a great day for America, and it's all a result of the leadership that President Trump's been advancing on the economy.
All the bad people in this story are lawyers. There's a hero. His name is Admiral Mike Rogers. He was the head of the National Security Agency. He discovered the illegal spying. He went personally to the FISA court and briefed the chief judge.
If we ask this question, what does it matter to the person at home? If the highest levels of government can trample the constitutional rights and the Constitution that through which we elect the president, imagine what it can do to you.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Hey there, welcome. StacyOnTheRight.com and UrbanFamilyTalk.com. That's where you can find out about the Marriage and Family Conference. It's coming up in June, y'all. You're going to want to register for it and attend. There are going to be some amazing speakers there. Yeah, what do we have going on? This hour, we're actually going to dive into a little bit of what happens next with this investigation. Liz Harrington, National RNC spokesperson, was so fantastic on just like summing up everything and kind of giving us a little peek around the corner to what could happen next. And I want to continue on with that. Look, we have no way of knowing how the investigations are going to crack out, but we do know that now we have Barr there now. We have AG Barr, and he's going to be pretty good. He's going to be pretty good with this because he's a little bit fearless. That's what I noticed about him this week in the parts of the testimony that I was able to catch. He's very common sense, and he's not afraid to use his experience as a seasoned prosecutor to kind of flesh out what the issues are. So we don't have any additional guests this hour. If you want to be a part of the program, you're welcome. It's Friday. We can talk about anything. 866-963-2037. 866-963-2037 if you want to call in and join the show. And right now I want to listen to this is an interview with DeGeneva. This guy, he's got his finger on the pulse. And he's looking ahead to what happens with these investigations and everything having to do with what we're seeing in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill right now. It's number one.
This is pretty simple stuff for career prosecutors like Rudy and myself. It has been evident from day one that there was a brazen plot to exonerate Hillary Clinton illegally, and then if she lost the election, to frame Donald Trump. This dossier was a knowing part of that. It was created by Hillary Clinton. It was created knowingly by John Brennan as part of a scheme to do everything they could to harm Donald Trump. The problem for Brennan and Clapper and Comey and Baker and all of them now is that the FISA court has already communicated with the Justice Department about its findings. And their findings are that for more than 4 years before the election of Donald Trump, there was an illegal spying operation going on by FBI contractors, 4 of them, to steal personal information, electronic information about Americans, and to use it against the Republican Party. There are going to be indictments. There's going to be grand juries. John Brennan isn't going to need 1 lawyer. He's going to need 5.
So John Brennan is among those who spent a lot of time on cable news saying horrible things about the president. So it's not a surprise to hear that he's in trouble. So does that make sense to you that his surrogates, people that are on his side, would be out, that they would have those kinds of insults coming out of Mazie Hirono? These people are not operating on their own. Mazie Hirono is not sitting in her office and saying, well, I think I want to do something really out of the ordinary for me in my position, and I want to be really insulting. Now, admittedly, she's usually a buffoon in these committee hearings. She never has any questions that make sense. She's always trying to trap people into contradicting themselves. And her favorite thing to do is to just make a long, rambling statement. It's like 500 to 750 words, and she just reads it. And the person that is in the committee to testify is having their time wasted. Because if that person wanted to hear a long, lengthy presentation, they could just sit at home and turn on a C-SPAN video or tune into a radio program where someone's presenting a lot of hard-hitting information. To sit there and listen to her spout off her opinions, and they're not even factual, it's a waste of their time, which is part of the reason why A.G. Barr didn't show up for the House. They wanted to try to make him look bad. He knew it, and he wasn't going to waste his time. He's got a lot of work to do, I would imagine. He's the Attorney General of the United States, right? So, there's that. But DeGeneva had a little more to say, and he was just so good here. It's number 2.
It's about the rule of law and privacy. The Obama administration, for more than 4 years before the 2016 election, allowed 4 contractors working for the FBI to illegally surveil American citizens illegally. The FISA court has already found that. By the way, Robert Ray mentioned that there is the Horowitz report coming out in May or possibly early June. There's another report that everybody has forgotten about involving James Comey alone. That will be out in 2 weeks. That report is going to be a bombshell. It's going to open up the investigation on a very high note, and there will be criminal referrals in it. The FISA court abuse is the center of this entire abuse of governmental power. And the chief judge of that court has already ruled that the FBI broke the law and that the people at the head of the Justice Department, Sally Yates, John Carlin, the Assistant Attorney General for the National Security, all knew about it and lied to the court, the FISA court, about it.
So there's been lying going on. Now, why do you think, let's knit it together, people. You got yesterday I believe it was yesterday. Forgive me if it was the day before. Nancy Pelosi comes out and says that A.G. Barr lied to Congress and he should be impeached. That wasn't accidental. You got to kind of follow the string, follow the little breadcrumbs or what have you. She's got to try to make A.G. Barr look like the liar because they've got some real liars who are literally they're kind of running and skipping and hopping and jumping and trying to do whatever they can to stay ahead of the IG report. They know when it comes out, there's going to be some stuff in it that's going to really light people on fire. If you think people ran away from CNN and MSNBC after the Mueller report came out and exonerated the president, wait till you see what people are going to do when they realize that they spent hours and hours of their lives sitting there, spoon-fed CNN, nothing but lies. Spoon-fed MSNBC, nothing but lies. And that the people who were lying to them are the same ones who tried to pull off a coup. Literally undo our system of government. Just, let's just make it our own thing. They were like, you know what? We want Hillary Clinton. If we don't get her, we're going to turn this thing into a bonfire. We're going to burn it to the ground. And now, guess who's in on the Troll 101 classes? If you want to see, you got to go on Twitter. President Trump tweeted out, and this was today, y'all. He said, had a long and very good conversation with President Putin of Russia. As I have always said, long before the witch hunt started, getting along with Russia, China, and everyone is a good thing, not a bad thing. Because, see, look what the Chinese have been able to do in the way of catching up to us and even passing us in some very small areas technologically and on the research side by being friends with us. By being friends with us, they were able to get their citizens in here to go to our colleges and universities. By being friends with us, they sent people to our venture capitalist, funding sites in Silicon Valley, and they've been able to lift emerging technologies right out from under the noses of our very creative geniuses who are out there doing this work. The ones who their mom spent all summer with them, putting them in technology camps and sending them to engineering schools for the little fun camps that they could go to learn about all of the different things they could do with computing, engineering, creative design, etc. The moms who read to their kids every night from the time they were in the womb until they could read on their own. The moms who said, you could watch TV every night, but instead you're going to go to Kumon. These kids who are currently cranking out the innovations that are literally revolutionizing sectors of technology, research, development, biotech, artificial intelligence. These are American kids. The Chinese don't have any kids like that. They got smart kids, but they're not creative. So China could be our adversary, or they could be our friend. They could loan us plenty of money. They could lull us into a sense of complacency. They could send their people over here and they could steal from us. And when we put a factory over there, they could make deals that say, look, if you want our cheap labor, if you want us to unleash 100,000 workers to work for you for 6 days to create your product and turn it around in 7 days where it would take 8 months in the United States, then you're going to have to let us see all of the intellectual property. You're going to have to share the whole thing with us. And Americans were like, 7 days, whatever, we'll do it. And so they've been lifting that off of us. This is not just some random tweet. This is him sharing a bit of genius with the rest of us, which is you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. We've known that since the dawn of time. He's now talking about it. I've just explained one specific relationship in which one of our adversaries, China, has been able to use sweetness and good relations to exact what they want out of us. He also tweets again, we discuss trade, Venezuela, Ukraine, North Korea, nuclear arms control, and even, in quotes, the Russia hoax. Very productive talk, exclamation point. He put that part about discussing the Russia hoax with President Putin. That was one of those, the shot over the bow that's just meant to warn you. The other vessel could blow you out of the water, but instead of doing that and destroying your boat, because they might want to board it and take it for one of their own, they fire a warning shot. Naval vessels do that to demonstrate that you are within range of their cannons. They can hit you. We could hit you. We could blow you out of the water, but instead we're firing a warning shot to give you the opportunity to prepare to be boarded. That little even Russia hoax, that's what that was. So he's playing with these people because had he given in to his impulse, which was to use his executive authority to end the Russia investigation and fire Robert Mueller, he would have played right into their hands, which is why they constantly goaded and prodded and poked the president to do that. It wasn't accidental that every time you turn around, over the past 6 months especially, we'll actually go back further than that because this is May, the 6 months preceding January, they were like, if he would just fire Mueller, then we've already got enough of the investigation. It's basically complete. It's been complete for months now. But if he would fire Mueller, then we could disregard what Mueller has found, which is no collusion, no obstruction, and we'd be able to get him for firing Mueller because they used the firing of Jim Comey to get the investigation started. Remember that? So he literally is, now that he's been exonerated, now that he actually toughed it out, he has the high ground. He gets to stand up and say, guess what? You wanted me to fire. You wanted me to go down in flames. I didn't go down in flames. I'm clean. I told you all along I'd never worked with the Russians or colluded or obstructed. I told you that many times. Now, let's get down to brass tacks. Scratch a scandal, find a Democrat. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So he's antagonizing them. He's toying with them. He's disrupting the conversation. They're having meetings about these tweets and about everything that they're going to try to do to clean up the sloppy job that they did trying to take him down. But it's too late. The IG has been investigating for months now. And you know Nancy Pelosi is just like, oh, she's not happy. And my recommendation to you is, have your snacks ready. If you're into, I just had basically vegetable lunch. It was good though. You can have vegetables as snacks. It's not anti-American to do that. Or you can go the way I used to go, which is all the sweetened popcorns, the kettle corn, caramel corn, plain popcorn with ranch, the dry ranch seasoning on it. The sky's the limit. Get your snacks ready. We have been waiting anxiously for the president to be exonerated. Now he has been. Now it's time to investigate the people who really actually subverted the will of our government, subverted the will of the people, and attempted to exact a coup, like a third world dictator, tin pot type coup. That's what they tried to pull off on us. This is no third world pit. This is America. And I want to see some justice. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready for it. I'm here for it. I'm waiting for it. All right, when we get back, we're going to talk about the Mueller report some more and the FDA saying people are accidentally killing themselves by taking Ambien. Stay right there.
It's amazing but true. When it comes to one of America's biggest household expenditures, healthcare, a lot of people think they've got no choice. People are used to thinking we have to do it this way, but they don't. Yes, you have the freedom to choose an alternative with your healthcare. It's MediShare, and it costs way less than the alternatives. The typical family saves $500 a month, not a year, a month. And if you're single, this can save you a lot too. And let's face it, a big reason MediShare is 400,000 people strong, it just works. They've shared over $3 billion in medical bills, so they can help share your needs too. Joining MediShare for so many people is one of those things that makes you say, why didn't I do this before? So yes, the time has come for something better. Look into joining MediShare and see why so many people are opting out of the old way and into the new. Why not look into this? Just call 855-PSALM-23. That's 855-PSALM-23. 855-PSALM-23.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Columnist David Brooks has a new book coming out, so he wrote a New York Times column about the 5 lies our culture tells us. He believes we've created a culture based on lies. Well, columnist Robert Samuelson responds to David Brooks in a Washington Post column by telling him to lighten up. So first, let's look at the 5 lies. They are that we believe that career success is fulfilling and that I can make myself happy. They also include the belief that life is an individual journey and that you have to find your own truth, and that the rich and successful people are worth more than poorer and less successful people. If you're a Christian and look at that list of lies, you would probably reject every one of them and agree with Brooks. We shouldn't get our significance from work and career. We're part of the body of Christ and should reject the lie of self-sufficiency. And we certainly should not try to find our own truth, but instead seek truth in Scripture. So why then would Samuelson advise Brooks to lighten up? He begins by acknowledging these insights are true, but they're also utopian. He says we haven't arrived in some kind of Garden of Eden paradise where almost everyone is happy, fulfilled, responsible, and respected. He points out, for example, that ambition can be both a blessing and a curse. It encourages people to try new things and to stretch their abilities. But people obsessed with their projects and obsessed with themselves mistreat others and cause problems. I applaud both of them. Brooks focuses on some of the major problems that have surfaced in our society, like spiking suicide rates and a coarsening culture. Samuelson, on the other hand, reminds us that most Americans have jobs and we live in a time of relative peace. Both are true and deserve our attention. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kirby's booklet, A Biblical View on Socialism, go to viewpoints.info/socialism. That's viewpoints.info/socialism.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
To me, it seems clear they were woefully disappointed. I mean, look, they've been holding out for this mystical Mueller report for 2 years. They believed that it was going to be the answer to all of their problems, that all of a sudden it would come out and Democratic children throughout the nation would be holding hands and singing songs of praise. And the report came out, and the there isn't there. It's not going to work. So a few of them are still saying, let's impeach. But I think the smart set is looking back and saying, there's nothing there to prosecute. And one of the reasons it's not there is because there is no there. There's no evidence, not even a scintilla of conclusion. And the circumstances don't warrant themselves well. They don't suggest any type of obstruction charge. And so they just don't have it. They must be very disappointed. That is how the system works.
Okay, so that was Senator Mike Lee, and he's got a great point that he's making there, which is that a lot of the antics we're seeing in these Senate hearings and the fact that they now want to talk to Mueller himself, which if Mueller is thinking this thing through, and I know it's almost incomprehensible to try to understand a legal mind like that because he's so experienced as a prosecutor and an investigator, but just from the ground, just way outside of the Washington, D.C. Beltway, sitting here, I've been a mom for 19 years. I've spent some time watching the behavior of other people. I have to say that if Mueller steps into the arena and decides to go in and try to clean up anything that Barr has said, or to make some things plain that he didn't make plain in the report, he's going to end up tarnishing his own reputation and making himself look foolish. Right now, he can still hold out. He can rail against or, use his silence to basically speak out against and shield himself from the accusations of partisanship. Think about it for a second. Republicans have said all along that they didn't like Mueller. They don't think he's going to do a good job. Establishment Republicans and people who are inside the Beltway, Acela corridor types have said, hey, you know what? Mueller's an upstanding guy. He's been there for a long time. He's served multiple presidents of both sides of the aisle. He's someone we can trust. Democrats have put him out as basically he's a white-robed angel. He's come down from on high to raise his hand against Donald Trump and those who work for him and destroy them. The actual literal judgment of our literal God, of our Father in heaven, God Almighty. That's what the Democrats laid him out to be. Now that the report hasn't come out and said that President Trump is a puppet of Vladimir Putin, or that he didn't obstruct justice. And remember, Mueller gave them what he could by saying he couldn't decide. I can't give you a finding on whether or not he obstructed justice. Well, the fact that you can't give it is basically an exoneration. So it's clear that he doesn't think things through all the way to their natural conclusion. And if he decides to be lured into that room by the Democrats so that he can placate them, here's a hint, they can't be placated. They cannot be satisfied. The only way to have satisfied them was to give them what they wanted, which was a conviction, an indictment, and impeachment opportunity. All they're going to do is try to entrap him into saying something they can use to propel their impeachment movement forward. Meanwhile, polling shows 69% of Americans are opposed to impeachment, with a scant 29% being for it. That's a crater. Support for impeachment has now cratered. Americans didn't like it when Republicans did it to Bill Clinton, who did actually lie under oath, but Americans didn't care because it was about personal infidelity and because it dominated the news cycle and ground Washington, D.C. to a halt. And I remember back then, come on, y'all, I used to be a Democrat. And I was like, man, I just hate everything Bill Clinton has done right here. But I also don't know that I'm so supportive of the Republicans keeping this issue before us. It's like all we talked about was what he and Monica Lewinsky did. It was just disgusting. And this was, it was so long ago. I don't even want to cast my mind back. I just know I remember the feeling I had that it wasn't going to end well for anyone. It felt like it was a national embarrassment. And that is what an impeachment of President Trump will be. But nationally embarrassing because half the country will be sitting there helplessly watching as Democrats do what they do, distract away from their failed policy positions. And the rest of America, whichever parts actually do support it, that sliver of Americans, they'll be getting the red meat they desire, but at the expense of our agenda, at the expense of relationships that we have abroad that need tending to, at the expense of things that have to happen in our country in order for us to move forward. So, I think Mike Lee is right. They're woefully disappointed. The question is, what will they do next? Obviously nothing good. There it is. Now, I did tease this a little bit, and I thought this was an appropriate story for the weekend because I'm one of those people who, if I don't get enough sleep during the week, I try to make it up over the weekend. And now people who study sleep are saying, doctors, physicians, etc., are saying that you can't actually catch up on your sleep during the weekend. It's a cumulative effect, and you have to have a consistent number of hours on a nightly basis, and just 16 minutes less sleep than you need can actually negatively impair you for work the next day. Not meaning that you can't work at all, but that you will experience more times where your mind drifts off of your task. Tasks will be more difficult to complete. In essence, you have to kind of set yourself up with a bedtime routine and stick with it and really kind of be protective of it and protective of your sleep time, making sure that you get into bed on time and that you rise around the same time in the morning. All bad news for me. Anyway, so federal health officials are actually going to require drug makers of popular sleeping pills to add warning labels to certain prescription insomnia medications. And this is after they reviewed cases of dangerous, sometimes fatal incidents that were tied to the drugs. And you'd be surprised here. We're talking about Lunesta, Sonata, and Ambien. Now, as someone who, full disclosure, years ago, many years ago, coming out of having our third child, and we had our kids really close together. So I went for like 6 or 7 years without getting good sleep. And that's normal. That the research says that a woman who has a child will experience 6 years of irregular and inadequate sleep after the birth of a child. But if you have one, if you have 3 and 4 years or something like that, like we did, I think it probably stretches out longer than that. Or maybe I condensed it down some. I don't know. So the black box, quote unquote, warning labels will be required for Lunesta, Sonata, and Ambien, among others, to caution patients about the possible side effects. The FDA announced this on Tuesday, stating that while these incidents are rare, they're serious, and it's important that patients and healthcare professionals are aware of the risk. Now, acting FDA Commissioner Ned Sharpless also said these incidents can occur after the first dose of these sleep medicines or after a longer period of treatment, and can occur in patients without any history of these behaviors and even at the lowest recommended dose. That to me sounds like they need to do some more research as to the safety and efficacy of these drugs. If they're saying after just one pill, you can have these side effects. When reviewing cases reported to health officials and found in medical literature, the FDA actually found 66 incidents in which injury or even death resulted after a patient taking insomnia medicines as Zopiclone, Zaloplan, or Zolpidem walked or drove a car while they were asleep. 46 non-fatal cases that caused serious injury included accidental overdoses, falls, burns, near drowning, exposure to extreme cold temperatures leading to a loss of limb or near death, self-injuries such as gunshot wounds, and even apparent suicide attempts. This sounds like one of those commercials, doesn't it? You know, the commercial where they present the drug to you and the people who are using it are thin and wealthy and good looking, and they're usually walking along a beach or they're running through some tall grass, and they're just so carefree, and they're supposed to be representatives of people who are using the medication that they're selling. And then towards the end of the commercial, a voice comes on where someone has recorded this and then they sped it up so they could fit it into a certain amount of time, and they name off a whole bunch of stuff like what I just named off. In addition to requiring new warning labels on these drugs, the FDA warned patients who have experienced a similar incident not to take the medication. So if you're a sleepwalker, if you've ever sleepwalked while you're taking this medicine, they're saying you can't take it anymore. The FDA said that although warning of these side effects were already included on labels, they're now going to put a black box warning on them to make it more prominent. Esoplaclone, Zaloplan, and Zolpidem are insomnia medications that help patients fall asleep or stay asleep easier by slowing brain activity. The agency had warned of possible side effects for some time for the morning after you've used it. So the side effects can go off into the morning. You wake up and you still got, your brain is basically moving pretty slow. The FDA estimates that almost 30 million prescriptions of the three drugs were filled in the United States in the year 2018. I'll say that again. 30 million prescriptions last year alone. That's a lot of people walking around who could sleepwalk or do some of these other things I listed off. 46 non-fatal cases that caused serious injury, including accidental overdoses, falls, burns, near drowning, exposure to extreme cold temperatures leading to loss of limb or near death, self-injuries such as gunshot wounds, and apparent suicide attempts. So if you have a prescription for one of those drugs, it might be a conversation that you need to initiate with your physician, where you look for an alternative. I know some things that have been successfully suggested to me, obviously melatonin, and then there are other things that you can take, and you can find them. They're all supplements. They're all over the counter. You can find them at CVS and Walgreens, and they have sleep aid section. And so you first have to kind of ease yourself off of the Ambien or the others, the Celesta, whatever you're taking, and then try some of the more natural remedies. I would just say, prayerfully consider whether or not you want to continue to take those drugs. The side effects sound like they're far more dangerous than maybe just having insomnia. And I know how bad it can be because I'm one of those people. But I thought it was an interesting story. Not exactly a Fri-YAY good news story, but still one that I think we needed to cover. So again, there's a few other things. Like we already discussed the Joe Biden dismissing the threat of China. And I really think that's going to come back and bite him again and again and again. I think he's going to find that having said that, that's going to be something that is really going to play well in RNC and GOP commercials running into 2020. Now, there are also, you heard Liz Harrington mention this person who admitted, there's that story that someone sent from the FBI actually went to try to infiltrate the Trump campaign, and someone else went into the Trump White House and was attending meetings, and this person was actually an FBI informant. Unbelievable. So running through some more news stories, we have some record levels of the Mississippi River happening in northern Illinois, and people in Missouri are concerned about flooding, and they're evacuating their homes if you have like cabins and things along the river. And I just ask for everybody, please pray for them, that they wouldn't lose. It's just unbelievable when the river crests and those houses, they're in threat of flooding and everything, because there's just been such a record rainfall. Also, we didn't specifically cover this story on the air, but you might have seen it on your local news about the trucker in Colorado. He just was literally speeding through, and there was a traffic jam, and so the other cars that he ended up hitting were just sitting there on the road, and he plowed through. The multi-vehicle crash involved 28 cars, and 4 people were killed, 4 people were injured, and he has now been charged with 40 criminal counts, including vehicular homicide. His name is Rogel Lazaro Aguilero Medeiros, and he was arrested and held without bail. He's 23 years old, and he says his brakes failed and he lost control of his tractor-trailer truck during evening rush hour, and this was on Interstate 70, I-70, and 28 vehicles were involved. He's got 4 counts of vehicular homicide, 6 of first-degree assault, and 24 of attempted first-degree assault. The preliminary hearing in the case was set for July 11th, and he's being held on a $400,000 bond. The tractor-trailer was actually carrying lumber, and it rammed into several cars, causing a pileup that developed into a raging inferno. 4 men who died were all single occupants in their vehicles. The police spokesman, Ty Countryman, said the carnage was significant, just unbelievable, and there is no indication that Aguilera Medeiros intentionally caused the crash or that he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. He told police that his brakes had failed, but cell phone video from a witness showed his truck veering across several lanes of traffic and forcing another vehicle off the road before the crash. Wow. So Robert Corey is a lawyer for Aguilera Medeiros. He said that his client was the victim of an accident caused by equipment malfunction, and that this is a massive, unprecedented overreach by the prosecution on a vehicle accident. Well, I probably think people who lost their family members and those who were injured probably don't think it's a massive overreach for them to prosecute him. I don't know if 40 counts will stick. That remains to be seen. But it's just such a sad story. We've got to pray for the victims and even the young man. I just wonder what happened. What really happened to cause the crash? Such a sad thing. So stocks are rallying, and I'm running through news as quickly as possible. We're trying to get it all in before the end of the show. Stocks are rallying after U.S. payroll data tops views and inflation comments dent the dollar. This is global equity markets rallying today, and they're up because a U.S. payroll report shot past expectations. More jobs. The Trump economy is booming. We have to thank God for the fact that he's a businessman and he's so good at setting up these environments in which business, private business, small businesses, large businesses, entrepreneurs can flourish. It's pretty fantastic. All right, we'll be back with more after this. 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037.
Have you ever found yourself so embarrassed in a situation that you couldn't even look a person in the eye? One day, I was in the drive-thru of a famous fast food restaurant, and I was giving my order to whom I thought was a man, but turned out to be a woman. Oh my goodness. I found that out because I said, "Yes, sir," and she quickly corrected me. I was so embarrassed, I couldn't even finish the order, so I drove off. That was a true story of fear and embarrassment. Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." My brothers and sisters, do not operate as I did and drive away due to fear creeping in. Know that the Spirit of the living God lives in you, and with Him, He can bring about that courage that you didn't even realize was already in you. With a heart for the urban family, I'm today's urban woman, Victoria Hollyfield. Connect with us more at urbanfamilytalk.com.
Pastor Joseph Parker.
You know, obviously when things are going well, it's much easier to have an attitude of thanksgiving and praise to the Lord. But even when things are going difficult, it's important to know too, there's never a time it's inappropriate for us to thank and praise God. Now some may ask, well, what about when you're going through difficult times, when you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death? We can have two different responses. We can worship or we can whine.
Tune in to the Hour of Intercession, weekday afternoons at 1 Central on Urban Family Talk. Abraham Hamilton III.
God put us in this world at this time to be salt and light. We don't fold because of the darkness that we're facing. This is not the first time in the world's history that it's gotten dark. God has called you and I to be His ambassadors, even in this dark moment.
Tune in to the Hamilton Corner, weekdays at 5 p.m. Central on Urban Family Talk.
Military Matters.
We have the honor of Army Private First Class William Rickenbach, young man of 87 years.
A special honor for a special man. The Freeholder Board honored U.S. Army and National Guard veteran Private First Class William Rickenbach for his service.
On behalf of a grateful nation, we say thank you.
Rickenbach was honored during an Audubon Park, New Jersey town hall meeting. Officials say he joined the National Guard in 1950 and during his military career received the National Service Medal, Good Conduct Medal, and the OCC Medal of Germany. He was visibly stunned.
But I never dreamed of this.
Surrounded by family, officials presented him with the flag and other commendations.
I'm stunned, and I didn't know I was just coming up here to talk about benefits for the veterans.
The honor comes at a time when Rickenbach says he is battling prostate and bladder cancer.
Shawnette Wilson, Fox 29 News.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
So the nicest thing I could say is it's unbelievable ignorance. It's just factually wrong. You hit it in your opening, Laura. The problems in Venezuela have been years in the making. It's been a socialist regime, first with Chavez, now with Maduro. The destruction of a net wealthy nation, the nation with more oil reserves than any other country in the world.
Beautiful country,
and a beautiful country with beautiful real estate, beautiful shorelines, all kinds of opportunity for a member of Congress who, frankly, one who sits on an important national security committee to make a statement blaming America first in this way. It's not only ignorant, it's disgusting.
Well, he's right. That was Pompeo. It's like, where does she get off blaming America? We sent aid down there to Venezuela. How is it something we did? I've explained it and I've mentioned it on the show, and I'll just say it one more time. Venezuelans back in 2012 agreed to give up their guns. And then those who had them, I think they collected 37 guns. I was just reading about this morning. They collected 37 guns. So then Hugo Chavez was in charge of their country. Hugo Chavez sent out the military and collected the rest of the guns. Dude sent out the military and took the guns by force. And if you didn't want to give up your gun under the heavy hand of the military collecting it, they were jailing people, putting them in jail for 20 years for not giving up their guns. Democrats would love to do that here. Because imagine, if you think Antifa likes busting the heads of old grandmas and grandpas who are out protesting, imagine what they would do if nobody was armed. If they could get away with it, if they could send out the U.S. military to collect all of the guns, and then Hugo Chavez would actually have these big showy events where he'd take the guns that were confiscated and put them in the middle of a town or a city and set them on fire. You know, this huge show of burning them to eliminate them. And it was supposed to be something that people celebrated. But if you weren't on board and you didn't give your gun up, you were going to jail for 20 years. 20 years. So why did Hugo Chavez want to disarm them? So he would never have to worry about them, removing him from office. And that his successor would be able to run them down with armored vehicles. Now, I'm not saying that if you have a handgun, you're able to stand up to an armored vehicle. But you know how that works. It's not so much that you can stand up to the armored vehicle. It's that those who are driving the armored vehicle know that we don't even know who has the guns. A lot of people here have guns. So since I don't want to run up against a whole bunch of armed citizens, I'm just not going to run any people down. They're going to protest and it's annoying to me, but I'm not going to do anything about it because I like living. That's the difference. The gun ownership is a deterrent to tyranny. So then Vice President Pence had a few choice comments about Ilhan Omar and her ridiculousness about blaming America for what's happening in Venezuela. It's number 6.
Because the Congresswoman doesn't know what she's talking about. Nicolas Maduro is a socialist dictator who's taken what was once one of the most prosperous nations in this hemisphere and brought it literally to a level of deprivation and oppression and poverty that we have never seen. 9 out of 10 people in Venezuela live in poverty. 3 million people have fled Venezuela. That's not a result of U.S. policies. That's a result of the dictatorship and socialism that has been imposed on the people of Venezuela by Nicolas Maduro. And from early in this administration, President Trump has made it clear the United States is not going to stand idly by while the people of Venezuela suffer under oppression and dictatorship and socialism. We've taken decisive steps and made it clear. Nicolas Maduro has no legitimate claim to power, and Nicolas Maduro must go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly what Vice President Pence said. Yeah. No comments there. Yes, exactly what he said. This dictator has to go so the people of Venezuela can begin to rebuild their country. So a couple of other things. We have had lots of different opinions on the program from lots of different sources, very credible people, some who support the tariffs, some who are totally against them. But the president has tweeted out, and I love it when he does this. It's awesome. He says, "Congrats to U.S. Steel for investing $1 billion in America's most innovative steel mill. 232 tariffs make Pennsylvania and USA more prosperous and secure by bringing steel and aluminum industries back. Tariffs are working. Pittsburgh is again the steel city. USA economy is booming." U.S. Steel actually tweeted out, that's the tweet that the president is retweeting. U.S. Steel tweeted, "To secure the future of steel making and manufacturing in Western Pennsylvania, we're proud to invest in a state-of-the-art technology to create an endless casting and rolling facility. This technology will make Mon Valley Works the first facility of this type in the U.S." And then they put their website link, ussteel.com/locations, Mon Steel. They have some images here that show what the facility looks like and some diagrams with, basically like a timeline of sorts to show people what they're talking about. Now, am I saying that all of the tariffs that the president has put into place are working as planned? No, I actually don't know that. But on this steel tariff issue, it appears that the tariffs are working. And so my thing with this all along has been, I never heard President Trump say he would put tariffs on forever, or that the tariff situation would be the new mode of operation for our country. I think what he has tried to do is to implement the tariffs in a way where they're motivators to move companies and industries to make decisions, change their behavior to benefit the American people. Where it's not working, the president should try other strategies. But it looks like some of what he's implementing is actually doing the job that he said it would do. And I don't understand why people can't be happy about that. Even if you're against tariffs, if he's able to use them and make it work in one situation, that's a benefit to American workers. Why not go with that? All right. So, now there's a whole lot of, how there's always backstory on the president? He was mad. He was upset. He threw a temper tantrum. He was cursing. He was this, he was that. Have you guys ever noticed that? It's just like, it happens a lot. Well, now we're getting some backstory about President Obama. Apparently, Barack Obama raged after Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 election and blamed the loss of her campaign on a scripted, soulless campaign, according to a new edition of a book penned by New York Times chief White House correspondent Peter Baker. Now, y'all know that when Democrats write about Democrats, it's kind of like watching, a slow motion train wreck of two people who've always been mean to you suddenly turn on each other. And you're like, are y'all fighting for real? And then you back up a little bit and you get out your snacks. Well, that's what this looks like, because Peter Baker is hardly a friend to Republicans. So apparently Baker reveals Barack Obama was so arrogant that he thought Hillary's victory was a sure thing because there was no way that, quote, Americans would turn on him. He saw himself as the antidote to Reagan, because President Reagan served 2 terms and then his vice president, George Bush, had 1 term. But then he governed differently than Reagan and was ousted by the American people. So in Barack Obama's mind, he would serve 2 terms, which he did. And then Hillary Clinton would be elected and she would serve the same way that he did. Same policies, same ideas, same leftism. And through that, it would be effectively the Obama doctrine for 12 years. That's not what happened. Y'all, that is not what happened. So Daniel Bates of the Daily Mail actually read Baker's book. And he said, because he wrote President Trump, or then candidate Trump, off as a cartoon. And he said, these people aren't going to turn on me. But when he watched Hillary lose, that's what he felt, that Americans had turned on him. So Baker wrote in his book, she was a serious and seasoned professional who had served at the highest levels of government and provided mature leadership. Just as important, she would continue his policies and cement his biggest achievements. His legacy, he felt, was in safe hands. Now, we know that Hillary was a grifter. She was incompetent and she was lazy. She wouldn't even get up and take her private plane to go to Rust Belt states to secure the votes needed to make sure she could win the Electoral College. She just assumed because she was going to be the first woman president and she was born for the role that it was hers for the taking. It's interesting because she's also responsible for the bombing of Libya. And do you guys remember, it was the bombing of Libya which led to thousands of refugees heading for Italy, which inspired other refugees from Muslim countries to flee to Germany and other European nations, basically triggering the largest invasion of Europe by Muslims in more than 300 years. Because Hillary Clinton is bomb happy, trigger happy. She loves war. She loves it. So the book is supposed to be a flattering portrayal of Obama's failed presidency. But it turns out that in writing about election night, you can't write about it in a way that makes Democrats look good. So Baker wrote that Obama struggled with what the American people had done and thought to himself that they simply could not have decided to replace him with, in his mind, a buffoonish showman whose calling cards have been repeated bankruptcies, serial marriages, and according to them, racist dog whistles, which I'm still waiting to hear what the racist dog whistles were. When Barack Obama was organizing in Chicago, Donald Trump was sitting at dinner with Rosa Parks and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. He was getting awards from those people for his work in the community. So, to fact check, obviously, the president has never actually gone bankrupt. He used bankruptcy court to rearrange loans for businesses, not personal bankruptcies. And these descriptors of him are just other ways for them to try to knock down what has been really a very successful outsider type presidency thus far. And, we have to look at the Obamas, who weren't exactly killing it before they became politicians. And then afterwards, now they're worth $40 million. Now they've got deals with Netflix. But not because they were excellent before, but because now they're power brokers and they can trade off what they know and who they are and their personal fame for these opportunities. And I think that's super important to point out. So, there it is. So Barack Obama didn't like the fact that Hillary lost. I find that kind of surprising because I know there's not a lot of love between the Clintons and the Obamas. But apparently he did want her to be the president, probably because it just would have been more beneficial for him. No matter what, having another Democrat there would have been better than having Donald Trump. And so this last piece, this is so funny. The Washington Post is actually, they have this horrible headline. Trump is already set to use the government to destroy the Democratic nominee. Now, isn't that, let's say it together. Scratch a scandal, find a Democrat. These people project so much they don't even know they're doing it. That is what Obama tried to do to Donald Trump. He tried to use the government to destroy then candidate Trump and set him up for destruction if he were to win. If he won, they wanted to make sure they could destroy him. Now, Obama used the IRS to punish his critics and to hurt Tea Party groups. Obama used the NSA to spy on his political opponents. Obama used the FBI to infiltrate opposing campaigns. Obama used his contacts with foreign governments to help facilitate the dossier that Hillary Clinton and her group and the Fusion GPS people put together. Obama actually obstructed justice in making sure that Jim Comey and his FBI didn't refer an indictment to the DOJ for Hillary Clinton on her email scandal. That's Barack Obama. The Obama administration was corrupt. Candidate Biden actually threatened a Ukraine prosecutor so that his son wouldn't go to jail. And Obama's first Secretary of State took hundreds of millions of dollars from foreign governments through her fake charity, we're talking about Hillary Clinton, which she laundered to help finance her campaign and Chelsea's wedding. Not to mention the Haiti funds. Remember those? All the money they raised to help Haiti that they used on themselves. And now, President Obama, as a civilian, is now pocketing $130 million for his book deal and his Netflix deals. He's well on his way to becoming a billionaire himself. And Democrats want us Americans to worry that the same laundry list of stuff that Obama did, that Donald Trump's going to do it. I got no words, which is lucky because it's the end of the show. All right. Enjoy your weekend. God bless you. Get in the pew Saturday or Sunday. Connect. Feel that presence. God's waiting on you to get in the pew this weekend. All right. God bless you from the Heartland. Citizens, enjoy your weekend. Until Monday.